A subject that I find really fascinating is synchronicity and also dreaming. So I guess that's two subjects, but they kind of fit together in certain ways that I find even more fascinating. And for example, just today, we released a video on YouTube, and one of my friends said something, left a comment in relation to my dad, and basically gave him a nickname that was his actual nickname for the last, not just the last couple years, but this has been his nickname like since I was a little kid, like 20, 30 years ago or more. I'm not going to say what it is because, as I told my friend, we have been keeping it secret because when we talk on the radio, we all have code names for each other, and we don't necessarily want people to know who we are when we're talking on the radio and we're out on adventures and stuff. And I just thought it was so fascinating because this friend of mine has been a really good friend, and she's been like there since our first video that we uploaded, and she leaves comments on like every single video, or almost all of them anyways. And we've like even sent each other gifts in the mail, and it's just been this really nice connection. And I haven't even told my dad this yet, I'll tell him later, but I just thought it was so fascinating that she gave him the nickname that he already has. And I asked her afterwards, I'm like, did someone tell you that's what his nickname was? She said no. So really one of those synchronicities that's just like almost hard to believe, because she specifically said it in the context of giving him the nickname that. Out of all the words and all the possible nicknames you could have in the whole world, the odds are like at least millions, probably like tens of millions, or maybe even hundreds of millions. Like there's millions of different words, I believe, in the English language, and then even more millions of different ways that you can combine all those words together. So it's just like flabbergasting or gabberflasting to even contemplate how she picked the exact name that he's had for all these years, and she's like, that should be his nickname. It already is. Oh, so I just kind of felt like getting out for a quick walk because we have some stormy weather moving through, and it's really beautiful. I'm sure you can probably see some of these clouds in the background, and this is all kind of very spontaneous. I didn't plan on doing this, but we've talked about sort of introducing more casual stuff to the channel instead of just these significant cinematic historical adventures. We're gonna start doing more just like short hikes, even some walks out in nature where I talk about stuff, and we'll try to figure out some ways to get my parents involved. And in regard to the dream stuff, the reason that I mentioned that, it wasn't necessarily connected to the nickname story that I just shared, but earlier today I had a new friend on Facebook just show up. I'm not even sure how she found me, but she shared one of my posts about dreaming where I made the claim, or not the, I don't know if it was a claim, it was more of a theory, a rhetorical question, asking if maybe we do even more significant work in our dream state than we do while we're awake. And I know that just sounds bonkers to a lot of people because it's like totally the opposite of what probably almost everyone thinks, because there's this huge like hustle grind culture where it seems like almost everyone is like, gotta work really hard, we gotta make all this money, we gotta do all this stuff. And maybe much, if not most, of the work actually happens while we're asleep and while we're dreaming. I know, sounds crazy, doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people, especially very scientific minded people, and I used to be very scientific before I started moving more in the spiritual direction. But one of the main reasons why I made that post and why I've changed a lot, and I told this new friend of mine on Facebook, is that years ago I learned of this guy named, or nicknamed, the Dream Detective. There's his nickname again, right? That could have been a very small synchronicity because we were just talking about nicknames. But he's nicknamed the Dream Detective because he was able to help solve crimes in his dreams, like predict the future through his dreams. Like he worked with law enforcement, he worked with like anti-terrorism units, and like the government took him serious enough that they actually listened to him to a certain extent. And like I said, they were working with him, and he provided information that helped solve or even prevent certain criminal acts. And it wasn't just about crime or terrorism. He predicted all kinds of stuff. One of the big things, and this is connected to crime and terrorism, but he, like many people, he predicted 9/11 in his dreams. And there are many stories of that. Not just from him, but from lots of people. I was trying to make a whole movie about it. I only got about halfway through. And there's just like, you can find things about that in like almost all forms of art, like movies, video games, music, comic books, even like really old stuff, potentially even the Bible, Nostradamus. And I've done a lot of research on the subject, so I'm going to be all over the place, and I'm not going to say everything that I want to say, but I heard that even the very first written, wouldn't call it a document because it's on like a cuneiform tablet, like the very first written artifact in history was allegedly connected to a prophetic dream as well. And there have been some scientific studies done on this. It's still rather new and a bit unaccepted by the mainstream, but there's been some actual real science where they've looked into this, and it seems to happen more often or more commonly with big events like 9/11, like major traumatic events that affect a lot of people in very negative ways. There was this other case, I think it was like a building that collapsed, if I remember correctly. It's been a while, but there was like a bunch of people that dreamed about that happening before it actually happened. And there's a lot of different theories as to what could be going on. Hello, bird. I don't pretend to know, but that guy, the dream detective, he had a really interesting story where he claimed that he was like out in the ocean on a boat and he was having a heart attack, and he's claimed that he had actually like died, and he went into this other, he was being like, I think maybe it was like floating out of his body or something, and he went up into what he described as like I don't remember if it was like a spaceship or like, but he went into this place where there was like these other beings that were almost like aliens that were talking to him and telling him it was his time to go on to the next world. And he said that he wasn't ready. He was like, no, please let me stay. There's someone I have to help. He was working with this other guy or something that he felt like would have bad things happen if he didn't get back there. So he kept insisting and asking. He was like, no, please let me stay. And the other beings, they said something like, okay, fine, but from now on, you'll have to live in both worlds. And ever since that time, he said that that's when he started having these premonition dreams that he would see things in the future. But he also explained how to do it in a way that maybe I'll probably never be as good as him at it. And to be clear, he's not always right either. At least he doesn't always bring the information back in a way that works. There's been times where he's been on, TV programs and his predictions were incorrect, but there's been many times where they were correct to the point that it boggles my mind. He did this fascinating study in my home state of Arizona called the Arizona Experiments, I believe. I watched like the whole thing, and it was truly incredible. He was working with a scientist, and I suggest you look it up because it's really, really amazing. And so I did the thing. Basically, it's simple. It's just like before you go to bed, you ask your dream state. You spend some time and you think to yourself like something like, please, or I don't know if you say please, but you ask your dreams, show me something in my dreams that I'll see tomorrow while I'm awake. And I just did that. I just started practicing, and the first 7 days that I did it, I got stuff every single day in my dreams that I actually saw when I woke up the next day. And I was just like mind freaked, for lack of a better term. And it slowly and more gradually over time continued to change how I look at life itself and whatever this experience is that we call life. And it just totally helped bring me more into the spiritual world. And I've had so many experiences since then. I've even had a few very powerful premonition dreams myself that are just, they're so almost impossible to believe that it's really difficult to imagine that it was just a coincidence, that there wasn't something else going on. And it's starting to get a little dark, so I'll probably have to tell those stories another time. But it's truly an amazing subject, and the government, and not just the government, but other corporations and rich people have invested a lot of money into this subject to predict the future through dreams. Like, there's even a website you can go to report your premonition dreams, and they're like, please help us, prevent tragedies and terrorist attacks and because there's so much real testimony, anecdotal information, and even real studies and science that very powerful people take this very seriously. And this is probably connected to the Stargate plan and things of that nature, where you have people remote viewing, and there's a lot of money put into that project as well. So as crazy as it sounds, I feel like this physical realm is like the duality of the dream realm. And when Chris Robinson, the dream detective, was asking to come back here, that's why those aliens or those beings said, you'll have to live in both realms, or both places from now on. So if you can get in touch more with your dream world, it can and likely will change your real physical reality to a significant extent. It has with me. Like, I've got a lot of stories. I learned so much stuff from my dreams. I have the weirdest dreams sometimes that I'm like, how could I ever just come up with that on my own? Just like totally random, interesting things. And then I look them up on the internet and they're like true. It's really fascinating, and it's strange to me that so few people really know about it or take it seriously. And science has done a good job of, modern science, like the gatekeepers have just kind of said, oh, your dreams aren't, anything other than just your memories replaying or processing throughout the day or whatever. Not just the day, but basically your dreams are a collection of memories that are being processed while you sleep, sort of like a computer, like going through. But I think it's a lot more than that. And I think the dream world is where we all go when we pass away. Sort of like that story I was just telling with the dream detective, where he was like dying and he went into this other place, and they were like, you have to live in both worlds now if you want to come back. And there's a bunch of interesting stuff with this, with ancient civilizations as well. Like in Australia, the natives there they have something called dream time. And the Patayan people here, who we've been researching in the Sedona area and other parts of Arizona and Colorado, dreaming was apparently very important to them as well. And many other cultures around the world, dreaming has been very important for a long time, for thousands and thousands of years. And it just seems only kind of recently that science has sort of pushed that to the side, and now a lot of people don't even dream, or they don't remember their dreams anymore, or they don't care about them very much anymore. But I truly think that in every dream there's messages and symbols that we can look at and learn from to help improve our waking life. And I think I'm gonna end it here because it's getting really dark now, and I don't want to ramble on for too long, but I just felt like going for a quick walk and sharing some thoughts, and those were the thoughts that came into my mind. So hopefully, if anyone listened to that, they found it interesting. And sorry it was a bit all over the place, but I will definitely talk about this more in the future, because as I said at the beginning, it's one of the most fascinating subjects to me. I'm super interested in it, and I have a lot more stories to share. So hope you're all doing great, and bye until next time.